guys, Ken here, your thrifty apprentice, and welcome back to the channel's version of a crafty corner. Happy Sunday, everyone. In today's video, we are going to be creating this whimsical tag DIY custom painting journal. Let's get started. The first thing we want to do is to prepare our base. So I've chosen a 12 by 12 piece of double-sided scrapbook paper. I do suggest scrapbook paper for the cover of this particular journal because you want to try to keep it as thin as possible. Now you could use cardstock. You could use a thin book cover, like maybe paperback that you've covered with fabric or something of that nature. So there are other options, but you do want to try to keep whatever you use as the base for your journal really thin. Now, what I want to do is cut this down to 9 by 12. Here we are. And the other reason for 9 by 12 is that I know it's going to fit the standard 8.5 by 11 pages for regular copy paper, or for even if I decide to bind it with mixed media papers, just fine. So now what I want to do is fold this in half. I'll use my bone folder. Now I actually want to cut my journal into a tag shape. And cut. Piece and flip it over to the other side. And that'll give us the shape for our journal. We have a tag cover. So now we're going to move on to actually designing the focal image for the cover of the journal. To prepare our focal image, I have a 9 by 12 piece of 140-pound cold pressed acid-free watercolor paper. Now this is super economical paper. You do not have to use your expensive high-grade papers for this. Of course, you can choose whatever you want for your focal image. You guys know that I tend to try to use my original artwork for focal images a lot of times in my crafting. However, you can use, again, pattern paper, you can use stickers, any type of ephemera, your gel prints, your handmade custom papers, whatever you choose, or however you choose to decorate your journal. You can. There are a lot of different techniques out there, a lot of different ones that we've covered on the channel. But for this particular journal, I'm going to actually be doing a hand-painted composition for the focal image. So I'm going to take my 9 by 12 piece of watercolor paper. I'm going to flip it over to the back, and then I'm going to actually trace. And this is on the back of the paper. Now that I have that traced, I'm going to actually cut this out on my cutter, or better yet, using a ruler and an X-Acto knife, so that I can cut 1/4 of the way in from each of those lines to make sure it's small enough to fit on the front of the journal. Now that I've cut the watercolor paper down to fit just inside ever so slightly, about 1/4 of an inch border all the way around. Now I'm going to actually tape down my watercolor paper and start on my composition. As we jump into this composition, I am going to draw on my horizon line, and I'm using Master's Touch Fine Art Studio 36 count of semi-moist watercolors. This is a really good set of novelty paints, guys. I really like them. I'm starting in at the top with a mixture of ultramarine blue and Payne's gray, and then I'm going into the bottom with what is known as brilliant purple by them. You see me kind of tapping there in order to get rid of some of the brush strokes in my sky. I'm going to keep it as dark as I can, or well, keep it dark at the top and keep that purple just there along the horizon. Now that white spot that came in between those two colors, I didn't intend for that to happen, but sometimes happy accidents do happen, and that's actually going to work to my advantage as the painting goes on. Now I mixed up 3 colors here. I'm using that darker tone from the top of the sky. I'm still using brilliant purple, and then I mixed another puddle of brilliant purple with a little of the Payne's gray and the ultramarine blue to get that darker tone. All 3 of those tones went into my water. I just started at the horizon line and then switching back and forth between those 3 colors brought it all the way down to the bottom of the paper. Now I'm going in with these really dark tone, which again is ultramarine blue, Payne's gray. I mixed in a little burnt sienna just to get it really, really dark, and that's what I'm using to paint in my palm trees. Now, as I told you guys in a previous video, this is World Watercolor Month, and for this month I've chosen palm trees as an image to, or as a as something to work on and to build on. Now, these palm trees are a little bit more whimsical than realistic. I was actually looking at a reference photo. If I'm not mistaken, it was on Unsplash. But I really just looked at it to see what the setup of the composition was. The rest of it, I kind of just painted as I went. Now, there's a twofold thing. It can be a good thing and a bad thing. I've said before that reference photos can become crutches. But what they do help you do is lean towards realism by observing what you see and painting what you see. The method that I'm using, I kind of just glanced at the reference photo and then I'm using memory to fill in the rest. Now, this is sort of how you develop your own style, and it doesn't lend much to realism unless you have a photographic memory, but it will help you kind of see what may be your own style of painting. So I just kind of went on a whim here. Those trees are a little abstract, but you can definitely tell that they're palm trees. Along that bank, I'm going to paint in a little bench. Everything is silhouetted because it is a nighttime scene. And eventually I'm going to drop in a lady and her little kid kind of running there along the other opposite end of the beach. Thought it was really cool. To kind of round off the composition, I threw in another palm tree. And those palm trees, you want to make them a little wider at the base as they connect into the soil. And they'll get a little skinnier at the top as they connect to the bulb that is going to sprout out the palm fronds. So that's what you see me doing here. And I'm just going to get those etched and sketched in. You can paint whatever you want. Of course, I always tell you guys, you don't have to follow what I'm painting. Paint whatever you want. The idea is that you paint. I'm taking that darker tone, throwing some shadows in the water because the moon would be reflecting shadows. Bleed proof white is what I use to put in the moon, and I'm also going to use that to put in highlights, my waterline, ripples in the water, all those good things that I typically use bleed proof for. Wonderful gouache product. It will mix with your tone sometimes if it's not dry, but for the most part it will remain really stark white, and I really do like that. So I finished up those highlights. And then I took my fine liner and I traced the outside as I normally do, removed the tape, and now we're going to jump back into journal construction. Now, I'm going to seal my work. There are several different ways you can do this. Here I have a varnish that I could use that is for acrylics and water-based media, oil. It helps for non-yellowing and protection. Of course, it's acid-free. You could also use hairspray if you don't happen to have any varnish. Now, hairspray is not acid-free. Please keep in mind there is a chance that your project could possibly, the white parts could possibly yellow over time. Of course, no time soon, but it is a quick fix if you don't happen to have varnish. I'm going to be using, as I always do, an a lamination sheet to seal my project. And now I'll run this through my machine. With my lamination complete, I'm going to take my scissors and cut all the way up to the watercolor paper and remove the backing. Here, I have cut the excess away from the tag all the way up to the watercolor paper. Now I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to see if I can grab, we have to find a corner. I'll run this through my machine one more time just to make sure that this is adhered down. Then I'll go to my sewing machine and I'll either do a straight stitch or a zigzag stitch around the tag cover in black thread. Here, I've sewn all around with just a straight stitch. I didn't do a zigzag stitch. So we have the cover, we have the focal image, or the cover for the, should I say the base, we have the cover. And now we just need to do the piece that'll go on the back to hold down our closure, which I've decided will be a ribbon. So for this, I'm going to just be using a regular piece of purple cardstock. So I'm doing tone on tone. We're keeping the purple tones throughout the entire cover for the journal. And just like I did the cover, I'll take my journal base, I'll turn it over to the side. It's going to be the back. I'm going to lay it down on the cardstock, and then I'll trace around and cut 1/4 of an inch in off of each line of the trace, to create my back. So here we are with the back cover cut out. We have the front cover cut out. Now you can decorate the back if you choose to. I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave mine plain, simple, and blank. I'm going to encase it inside an lamination sheet as I did with the cover. I'll sew around, I'll cut it out, remove the back, sew around it just like we did with the front cover in order to prepare the back cover. Here we are with all three pieces ready to go. We have our back cover, our base, and our front cover. To that, I will be adding white ribbon for my closure. And you kind of want to think about your closure ahead of time as you're in the beginning stages of designing your art journal or your junk journal, just so you can have a general idea about building or the construction throughout the process. Now, I won't be putting a book plate on the front of this because I did not want to obstruct the entire focal image like I normally do. So I figured that the bow being tied on the front is going to be enough distraction. So let's get into putting this together. Starting with the back, you want to first make sure that you have your base turned in the right direction, because you don't want to glue the back to the front or the front to the back. I made that mistake before. So once you've discovered what's the back of the base, next you want to go ahead and attach your closure. Now this is pretty easy. You can use whatever closure you want. I decided to go with something really simple. Again, I'm trying not to distract too much from the front cover. I'll fold that piece of ribbon in half just so I can locate the center. And then I'll crease it just so I won't lose it. And then I'll know that I'm putting that particular part in the center of the back cover. So what I'll do at this point is simply lay down a strip of glue across the back cover, and then I'll lay the ribbon in. I'm not really worrying about the glue bleeding through the front of the ribbon, because we will then be covering the ribbon with the actual back cover. So glue first, and in this case I will be using Scott Create glue stick. As I told you guys before, this glue stick is really more like maybe a glue cement. Very, very strong to hold. So again, I'll center that up. I'm going to actually mark it. Lay down my glue. And attach my ribbon. Add glue stick to their back cover. I'll add a little Fabrifix just for extra security right around the edges on top of the thread from the sewing. Now we'll line this up and glue it down. Now that the back is complete, I'll flip it over to the front, and I'll do the same exact method to put down my focal image. At this point, I'm going to press my entire cover under something heavy to give the glue time to set and to adhere. Also giving the base time to flatten out, because it is going to be just a bit warped from gluing down what we have. So I'm going to press this under something heavy. It'll be a few minutes for me, but it'll be just a second for you. After pressing under something heavy and giving time to dry, it's time to go ahead and complete the inside cover. Now you have to excuse me, I've cut some of the lights down around my recording studio. I'm trying to still figure out the lighting level, guys. Thank you so much for bearing with me during my videos, because I know the lighting levels do change sometimes, but I'm doing my best to work it out. Now, stay focused. We need to do the inside. For the inside cover, I've already prepared what I want to use for strengthening my spine and both of the panels for the inside cover. I took an additional piece of pattern paper, cut it down to match the tags that were on the front and the back so that they would fit on the inside. I took the leftover pattern paper from making the base, and I put pockets on the front of both of those inside covers. So now I will adhere everything into place using a little of my Fabrifix and glue stick. And just like that, here we are. Our cover is dry, everything is flat, and we want to move on to doing the inside. Now, the inside is predominantly done exactly like the outside. I simply took a piece of pattern paper, I cut a cover for the front and the back that would fit the insides. I took the leftover pattern paper from the base and used it to make pockets for the inside covers. And to strengthen the spine, I'm going to be using a piece of my DIY, what I call book tape, or you may even want to call it washi tape if you want to. If you guys are interested in knowing how to construct these or make these, or add these to your repertoire, jump in the comment section, let me know. I'll be happy to put a video together for you if you're interested in that. So what I'm going to do is peel back my tape in order to get my spine secured. I'll be covering this tape with both glue stick and Fabrifix, and I'll be adhering it down. I'll cover both the front and back panel with glue stick and Fabrifix, and I'll adhere those down as well. Now I'm to the point where I can choose the pages for my signature. I've selected 16 different pages to include in my journal, and as you can see from the pages I've selected, I've decided to make this a junk journal. Papers range from coffee dyed to tea dyed to watercolor dyed to watercolor splattered, regular paper, copy paper, ruled paper, which will be turned sideways. So, if you have an issue with it being turned sideways instead of the regular way, you may not want to include ruled paper in your journal. If by chance you happen to be interested in how to create your very own coffee stained stencil paper or even tea stained stencil paper without the use of any type of dyes? Don't forget to let me know in the comment section. For now, I'm going to fold all of these, fit them inside each other to create a signature, and then we'll measure to make sure that it fits our journal. Now, with my signature fitted together, I can go ahead and bind my journal. I'm going to be using the 3-hole pamphlet stitch to bind the journal. I'll be binding it with white embroidery floss in order to match the ribbon that's used for the closure. And the great thing about using 8.5 by 11 A4 paper in order to make the signature, I do not have to worry about actually cutting any of it off on this particular side. I only have to worry about cutting the papers at the top to fit the angle of the journal. So if you're not familiar with the 3-hole pamphlet stitch, I'll be sure to link a video in the top right hand corner where you can go and watch me walk you through the 3-hole pamphlet stitch. But for the sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and bind this journal. With my book finally bound, everything in place, I'll close my journal, I'll trace the edges, and then I'll cut them off. Finally, here we are. Now you guys overlook the way that I tied the bow. It's just for demonstration purposes. I'll be sure to tie it much better, much more presentable before I package it to go up on the Etsy shop in case anybody decides they're interested in it. So really quickly after finishing up, this is what we look like. And I'm gonna go ahead and do a really quick flip through because I added a few things to it, not much at all. I kept it really basic because I want this to be capable of being built upon whoever purchases this or whoever it becomes a part of their collection. I want to make sure that they're able to cater it to their own personality. You would open the journal up, and of course you see the beautiful focal image that you painted, hand painted yourself, or if you used ephemera or whatever have you, you will see the cover decoration. I didn't put a book plate on because I don't want to obstruct the cover. On the inside of the cover, when you open it up, you have a beautiful layout and a beautiful spread. Here we have the stained stencil papers. I did add a bookmark inside from the DIY bookmarks that we did on the channel a couple of months back or a month and so back. I'll be sure to link that video. Check the card at the top or in the video description. I also added a journaling card. Now this is just a bookmark to mark the place in the journal. I added this journaling card, which again is hand painted. This again is something that we did on the channel. I'll be sure to link this video as well. Now the decoration itself wasn't done in that video, but how to make the overall painting was. So I'll be sure to link that. And that has just been turned into a journaling card. So really nice, really cute to go directly inside that front pocket there. So just a little something to get the person who has this journal started. And of course we have the different pages that are inside the journal, which have also been cut to tag shape. Of course the smaller pages, you don't have to worry about that with it. There we go, very beautiful. I really love the way all those pages look laying next to each other. So much body and color and prettiness. All the way over to the back of the journal, keeping in mind that it's just one signature. And then on the very back, I just have this, another journaling tag. Magazine image that has been adhered down to actually file folder. I drew in the lines on the back, added a little topper sewed around, and then that fits directly in the back cover. Now the good thing about that is it sticks up over the top just a little, which prevents me from having to actually add a topper to that journal and still be able to emulate a tag without damaging my covers putting anything on there. So I thought that it was really cool. And that's all the embellishments that I did to the journal, guys. And that is going to actually bring us to a wrap for today's video. Hopefully throughout all of these instructions, you guys picked up on something that will help you in your crafting or your art creation journey. If you picked up on any of those tips, tricks, techniques, or anything that you like at all, please don't forget to give the video a thumbs up to help the channel and its algorithm. Go ahead and share the video. Remember that sharing is caring, and maybe someone else out there would love to see how this journal is made. I might have to play around with that. I never tie a bow right the first time, guys. I'm just going to let you know. I'm going to play around with tying that off camera. Don't forget to follow us on all the social media sites. You can check the video description for the most recommended product list. You can check it for the Etsy shop in case you decide that you would like to support the channel. And I'll link up, like I said, any relevant videos to any of the things that we saw in this one that's necessary. Thank you guys so very much for joining me. Thank you so much for staying through this long video. I'll see you next time here on the channel. And remember, as I tell you at the end, always just keep painting and crafting.